Picture this. She posts "living my best life" with a picture of herself alone at brunch. Caption: independent woman era. Don't need a man. Focusing on myself. Her friends comment fire emojis. Society celebrates her. You're supposed to applaud this. Meanwhile, she's crying herself to sleep 3 nights a week. Checking her ex's Instagram obsessively. Feeling more alone than she's ever felt. But she can't admit it. Because she's in her independent era. And independence means pretending you don't need what you're desperately missing. You watch this performance and something feels off. The energy is wrong. The words say strong, but the eyes say empty. The posts say thriving, but the vibe says surviving. She's performing independence like a role, and everyone's pretending not to notice it's a performance. The emperor has no clothes, but we're all clapping anyway. What if I told you that what modern women call their independent era is actually a coping mechanism disguised as empowerment? That this isn't strength, it's defense? That independence isn't what she wants, it's what she settled for after failing to get what she actually needs. Millions of women are currently in their so-called independent era, declaring they don't need men, focusing on themselves, building their careers, and secretly miserable, lonelier than they've ever been, but trapped in a narrative that won't let them admit it. Because admitting you need connection means you failed at independence, and failure isn't allowed in the era. I've watched this performance play out across more generations than you can imagine, but never with this level of delusion. Never with this much societal celebration of obvious suffering. Today, I'm going to reveal what her independent era actually is, why it's a defense mechanism, not a choice, and why she destroyed her own happiness to maintain the illusion. But understand this. What you're about to learn exposes the biggest lie of modern femininity. This is deconstruction. Pay very close attention. Here's the myth mortals have been sold. Independence is empowerment. A woman who doesn't need a man is strong. Focusing on yourself is healthy. Building a life alone is success. This is what she's been taught since childhood. This is what society celebrates. This is what feminism sold as liberation. And it's a complete inversion of female psychology. A lie so big that millions of women are sacrificing their happiness to maintain it. This isn't opinion. This is observation. I've watched thousands of women destroy their own well-being in service of this mythology. Same pattern, same performance, same hidden misery. You see, mortals believe that if someone declares independence, they must want independence. That if a woman says she doesn't need a man, she genuinely doesn't. That stated preferences match actual needs. But here's what actually happens in reality. The independent era is what women enter when they can't get what they actually want. It's not a choice. It's a consolation prize they're pretending is the grand prize. Let me show you what this looks like beneath the performance. Woman can't find a man who meets her standards. Or she got hurt in her last relationship. Or she's approaching an age where options are decreasing. Or she's been rejected by men she actually wanted. So she pivots, declares an independent era. Suddenly, she doesn't need a man. She's focusing on herself. She's empowered. She's thriving alone. And everyone congratulates her. But nobody asks the obvious question. If you're so happy alone, why do you need to announce it constantly? The myth says independence is a positive choice. A woman choosing herself, prioritizing her own growth, building her own life, strong, empowered, complete without external validation. But here's the truth they don't tell you. Real independence doesn't need to be announced. Real strength doesn't require performance. Real contentment doesn't need constant social media validation. When someone has to tell you repeatedly how happy they are, they're trying to convince themselves, not you. Let me break down exactly what the independent era actually is. Layer 1, it's a defense mechanism. She can't admit she failed to secure the relationship she wanted. Can't admit she's lonely. can't admit she needs what she doesn't have. Because modern feminism taught her that needing a man is weakness. So she reframes failure as choice. I didn't fail to get a relationship. I chose independence. I'm not lonely. I'm empowered. I'm not missing something. I'm complete as I is. The independent era is a narrative she tells herself to avoid confronting the painful truth. She wanted something. She didn't get it. And now she's pretending she never wanted it. I watched a 34-year-old woman enter her independent era after her boyfriend of 2 years refused to propose. She wanted marriage. He didn't. They broke up. Within a week, she's posting about her independent woman journey. Focusing on herself. Don't need a man? Living my best life. Her friends celebrate. But I watched her. Crying when she sees couples. Stalking his social media. Checking if he's dating someone new. Going on terrible dates hoping to find someone better. All while maintaining the independent era performance publicly. The narrative protected her ego. But it didn't stop the pain. It just forced her to suffer alone while pretending to thrive. This is the first truth about the independent era. It's not empowerment. It's ego protection. A psychological defense against admitting failure or need. And the more she performs it, the more trapped she becomes in the performance. Because backing out means admitting it was never real. And that admission is what her ego can't tolerate. But here's where this gets deeper. Layer 2. It's a cope for declining options. Most women don't enter their independent era at 22. They enter it at 32, 35, 38. After a decade of rejecting men who are actually available. After chasing men who didn't commit. After prioritizing career over relationships. After the options have significantly decreased, the independent era isn't chosen at the peak. It's declared at the decline. And everyone pretends not to notice the timing. The myth says she's choosing independence. The truth is independence is what she settled for after the choices she actually wanted became unavailable. She didn't choose to be alone. She ran out of options she deemed acceptable. And rather than lower her standards or admit she miscalculated, she rebranded being alone as empowerment. The independent era is a cope, a way to maintain dignity while experiencing the consequences of previous choices. Let me show you how this manifests. Woman spends her 20s rejecting good men as boring, not exciting enough, not rich enough, not alpha enough. Pursues relationships with high-value men who have abundant options and don't commit. Turns 30. Turns 32. Turns 35. Suddenly the good men she rejected are married. The high-value men still aren't committing. Her own market value has decreased. Options are limited now. So she pivots. Independent era. Don't need a man anyway. Was always planning to focus on career. Happy alone. Meanwhile, she's panicking internally. But the narrative hides the panic. And society validates the narrative. So she's stuck performing strength while experiencing desperation. You know what really gets me about this? Society not only allows the lie, it celebrates it. She announces her independent era, and everyone claps. Yes, queen. You don't need a man. Focus on yourself. Strong woman. Empowered. As if independence wasn't obviously a second choice. As if everyone can't see through the performance. We're all participating in a collective delusion because the truth is too uncomfortable to acknowledge. She made choices that led to outcomes she doesn't want. And we're all pretending those outcomes are actually what she wanted all along. I've watched this exact pattern destroy women across millennia. Ancient women who couldn't secure desirable partners became bitter, but acknowledged the reality. Modern women can't even acknowledge it because the mythology won't allow honesty. They have to perform happiness while suffering. The delusion is more important than the truth. And that delusion is what's making them miserable in ways ancient women never experienced. And here's what they don't tell you about the independent era. Layer 3. it's actively making her more miserable. The performance requires constant energy. She has to maintain the facade on social media. Post the solo travel pics, the brunch photos, the career wins, the girls' nights, all with captions about how happy she is alone. But maintaining the performance prevents her from processing the actual feelings. She can't grieve what she didn't get, can't admit she's lonely, can't express that she's struggling, because that would contradict the independent era narrative. So she's trapped in performative happiness while experiencing real sadness she's not allowed to acknowledge. I watched a woman maintain her independent era for 3 years. Instagram feed full of empowerment posts. Thriving alone, best life, strong woman energy. Behind the scenes, crying in therapy every week about how lonely she is. Telling her therapist she's desperate for a relationship. Going on dating apps nightly hoping to find someone. But she couldn't post any of that. Couldn't tell her friends. Couldn't admit it publicly. Because she declared an independent era. And backing out meant admitting failure. So she suffered silently while performing publicly. The gap between the performance and the reality was destroying her mental health. But the narrative was more important than her well-being. The myth says the independent era is self-care, taking time for yourself, focusing on your own growth, healthy boundaries. The truth? It's self-abandonment, ignoring your actual needs to maintain an image, performing strength while feeling weak, declaring happiness while experiencing misery. And the performance prevents the healing, because you can't heal from something you won't admit hurts. Layer 4, and this is where it gets truly destructive. The independent era actively prevents her from getting what she actually wants. Because to get a relationship, she'd have to admit she wants one. To admit she wants one contradicts the independent narrative, so she's trapped. She can't pursue what she needs without admitting the independence was fake. And admitting it was fake means ego death. So she stays stuck, performing independence, secretly miserable. Unable to change because change requires honesty the mythology won't permit. Let me show you how this trap works. Woman in independent era meets a good man. He's interested, she's interested, but she can't show it. Because showing interest means admitting she needs something, and needing contradicts independence. So she plays it cool, acts uninterested, maintains the independent woman frame. He interprets this as disinterest, moves on. She's alone again, blames him for not trying harder. But the real problem? She couldn't drop the performance long enough to allow connection. The independent era narrative is protecting her ego while destroying her chances at what she actually wants. I've watched women sabotage good relationships to maintain the independent era performance. Guy wants commitment. She says she's in her independent era, not ready, needs to focus on herself. He leaves, she's devastated, but she can't admit it because that would mean the independence was fake. So she posts about how she's choosing herself, how she's not settling, how she knows her worth. Meanwhile, she's checking his Instagram daily, hoping he'll come back, regretting the choice, but trapped in the narrative she created. The performance became a prison, and she has the key, but using it means admitting she was lying the whole time. In all my time observing human nature, I've never seen a delusion this collectively maintained. Ancient women who failed to secure partners faced social stigma, but at least they could be honest about their situation. Modern women have to perform happiness about their failure. They're more miserable than ancient spinsters, because at least spinsters could admit they were spinsters. Modern women have to pretend being alone is their choice, their strength, their empowerment. The lie is more damaging than the reality ever was. But here's what makes this truly impossible to escape. The independent era has become a social movement. It's not just her delusion anymore. It's collective. Her friends are in their independent eras. Social media celebrates it. Articles praise it. Society validates it. She's surrounded by other women performing the same lie. And when everyone's performing, nobody can admit it's a performance, because that would expose everyone else too. So they're all trapped together, maintaining the mythology, reinforcing each other's delusions, creating an echo chamber where the lie becomes truth simply through repetition. I watched a group of women in their mid-30s all declare independent eras simultaneously. After a few of them got dumped or couldn't find relationships, they formed the Independent Women Group, girls' trips, brunch clubs, group photos with empowerment captions. And it looked supportive. But what I observed behind the scenes was different. They were all miserable, all secretly trying to find men, all lonely. But nobody could admit it, because that would break the group narrative. So they propped each other up in the delusion, validated each other's performances, told each other they were thriving, while individually they were suffering. The collective mythology was more important than individual honesty. And that collective pressure is what keeps women trapped in independent eras they desperately want to leave. Let me show you the linguistic tricks of the independent era. Every phrase is designed to reframe failure as choice. She's not single because men don't want commitment. She's choosing to focus on herself. She's not lonely. She's learning to enjoy her own company. She's not settling for less than perfect. She's knowing her worth. She's not aging out of the market. She's in her prime. She's not desperate. She's selective. Every negative reality has been linguistically inverted into positive framing. And the language does its job. It protects the ego, but it doesn't change the reality. She's still alone, still aging, still with fewer options, still missing what she wants. The words just make it easier to lie about. The myth is that these linguistic reframes are healthy. Positive self-talk, confidence, self-worth. But here's what's actually happening. She's gaslighting herself, training her mind to deny reality, to call failure success, to name cope as empowerment. And the more she does this, the less she can see truth. The delusion becomes her reality, and escaping delusion is exponentially harder than avoiding it in the first place. Most mortals watch the independent era and think she's genuinely happy, that she's living her truth, that she doesn't need what she's not pursuing. But I've seen behind the performance. I've watched what happens when the cameras are off, when the friends leave, when the Instagram post is done. And what I see is pain, profound loneliness, deep regret, desperate hoping someone will see through the performance and offer what she needs without her having to admit she needs it. The independent era is a cry for help disguised as a celebration. And here's the kicker that makes this completely tragic. She can't escape the independent era without admitting it was fake. And admitting it was fake means ego death, means admitting she was wrong, means facing the reality she's been avoiding, means acknowledging she's not thriving, she's coping, that she's not empowered, she's defending, that she's not independent by choice, she's alone by circumstance. That admission is more painful than continuing the lie. So most women never escape. They stay in the independent era until it becomes their identity. And then they become bitter older women who've convinced themselves they chose this life, when the truth is the life chose them after they ran out of alternatives. I watched a 45-year-old woman who'd been in her independent era for 15 years, still posting empowerment content, still declaring she's thriving alone, still saying she doesn't need a man. But privately, she's devastated, wishes she'd made different choices, wishes she'd valued the good men when she had access to them, wishes she'd prioritized relationships over career when there was still time. But she can't admit any of this publicly, because she's built an entire identity on the independent era. Her friends know her as the strong, independent woman. Her social media is a monument to empowerment. Backing out now means admitting 15 years of performance. admitting she wasted her prime years, admitting she was wrong about everything. That admission is unbearable, so she continues the lie, gets more bitter, more defensive, more invested in the mythology, because the mythology is all she has left. So let me make this crystal clear. The independent era is not empowerment. It's a defense mechanism women enter when they can't get what they actually want. It's not a choice. It's a cope, not strength. It's protection, not thriving. It's surviving while performing thriving. And the performance is making them more miserable than just being honest ever would. Because you can't heal from something you won't acknowledge hurts. And the independent era requires denying the hurt exists. So what do you do with this information? First, stop validating the performance. When she announces her independent era, understand what you're actually seeing. Not empowerment, defense, not choice, cope, not happiness, performance of happiness to mask pain. Stop celebrating the lie, because celebrating it keeps her trapped in it. Then, recognize that she needs what she's claiming not to need. The declaration of independence is often a desperate hope that someone will prove she's wrong, that someone will be good enough to make her drop the performance, that someone will be strong enough to call out the lie compassionately. She's not actually independent. She's waiting for someone worth depending on. The era is a test. Most men fail by believing the performance. And finally, understand that the mythology is cultural, not individual. She didn't invent the independent era. It was sold to her by feminism, celebrated by media, reinforced by society. She's trapped in a narrative bigger than herself. Blaming her for being in it is like blaming a fish for swimming in poisoned water. The water is poisoned. She's just trying to survive in it. Have compassion for the trap she's in, but don't validate the delusion that the trap is freedom. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The independent era is the biggest lie modern women tell themselves. It's rebranding failure as success, loneliness as empowerment, cope as choice. And millions of women are trapped in this lie, performing happiness while experiencing profound suffering, unable to escape because escape requires admitting the whole thing was fake. And that admission would shatter the identity they've built. This is what I've observed across thousands of years. Women have always coped with being alone, but they used to be able to be honest about it. They could admit they wanted partnership and didn't find it. They could express loneliness without shame. Modern women can't. They have to perform empowerment, have to claim they chose this, have to pretend they're thriving. The inability to be honest is what's making them more miserable than any generation before. At least ancient women could grieve what they didn't have. Modern women have to celebrate it. The choice is yours. You can keep believing the performance. Keep thinking she's genuinely happy alone. Keep accepting the mythology that independence is her authentic choice. You can keep validating the lie that's destroying her ability to admit what she needs. Or you can see through it. Recognize the independent era for what it is. A defense mechanism masquerading as empowerment. A cope disguised as a choice. A performance hiding profound pain. Stop celebrating the lie. Start calling for honesty. Because she never escaped the trap as long as everyone keeps telling her the trap is freedom. I'll be watching.